You might not always like what's being reported, but there are a lot of journalists out there these days doing their jobs and reporting the news, and there are a lot of people out there who don't like what that news is. ABC 7's Erica Jackson joins us now with details of a measure that would make it a federal crime to physically attack someone reporting the news. Erica.
Thanks, Alan. The U.S. Freedom Press Tracker reports 44 journalists were physically attacked last year while gathering the news. That's why a U.S. representative is sponsoring the Journalist Protection Act to punish anyone who intentionally causes bodily injury to a journalist. In between daily newscasts, there's a lot of things that don't show up on screen.
What people typically see on TV is just the live portion of what we do in the entire day.
ABC 7 reporter Jess Dowdrick spends her 8-hour day setting up interviews, filming her story, editing, and presenting it to thousands of households in Sarasota and Manatee counties. But viewers don't see her doing it all by herself. And when she's live on TV, she still performs as a one-man band. Dowdrick says she feels safe as a solo journalist 95% of the time, but she could use a second set of eyes in certain settings.
You don't know who could come up behind you, who may be there watching you, so you kind of feel alone and not very protected at some points in time.
Congressman Eric Swalwell says fear should never get in the way of a journalist's reporting. That's why he is sponsoring the Journalist Protection Act. It would make it a federal crime to physically hurt a journalist or intimidate him or her from gathering news. The measure intends to represent violence against reporters is unacceptable.
So I think it takes just a normal everyday assault and battery and makes it applicable to virtually everyone to make it a federal crime.
Attorney Sarah Blackwell believes the bill has no teeth and is certain it won't go anywhere. The main issue, the measure vaguely defines the term journalist, meaning it's protecting news reporters, paparazzi, and citizen journalists.
It would be impossible, I think, to be able to qualify an actual real definition of journalist these days with social media and with the internet.
The legislation specifically mentions President Donald Trump, blaming him for the hostility against the press throughout the United States. President Trump tweeting this video in July, showing him punching a man with the CNN logo over his face and bringing popularity to the phrase fake news.
The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not.
I believe it's a smear campaign against Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump has declared informally or formally a war on the mainstream media, and I think this is the mainstream media fighting back.
I think journalists should be afforded protection for sure. I mean, the First Amendment and the freedom of the press are vital components of a democracy.
Sarasota businessman and Republican Martin Hyde understands journalists sometimes find themselves in the line of fire during heated events, but doesn't think they deserve a special category for protection.
I think if you go into the middle of a hostile environment and stick a microphone under or a camera or somebody, I think you're taking an attendant risk.
In the likely event the bill comes to a standstill, Blackwell says journalists will still be guarded.
Every state has protections against threats and harassment and assault and battery. So it's not like if we don't have the Journalist Protection Act, we don't have any protection.
Dowdrick doesn't believe a federal law will stop criminals from battering or harassing journalists. She says people will continue to break the law, but wants the media to have better representation.
I think a lot of it is the stereotype about journalism and changing that message in the community and in the country.
The bill also recognizes journalists are being harassed online, and some have received death threats and threats of sexual and other physical violence. The director of the News Media for Open Government is also speaking out, saying fear should never get in the way of journalists covering police, protesters, or other public matters.
Erica, thank you.